we talk about this data lake that we create to be able to draw this information from. And what I see AI really doing is creating not just this internal data lake we have, but the all information becomes part of that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks series brought to you by AKFI, Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry association committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host of this talk series, here with Manuel, another co-host, also the executive director at AKFI. Thanks to this talk series, we get to bring together great minds to together discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. Today we have Jeff joining us. Jeff, say hi to our audience. Jeff has over 17 years developing sustainability strategies and implementing projects in the public and private sector. He is passionate about sustainable sourcing and the circular economy and on the creating and communicating sustainable impact across the organization, resulting in positive social change. And currently, Jeff is the director of sustainability at New Skin, which is a global beauty and wellness brand. Jeff leads the corporate and product-focused sustainability efforts, ranging from climate change risk and reduction strategy to improving packaging and ingredient supply chain. Thank you, Jeff, for taking the time. Everything you do is very relevant to this talk series, to what AKFI, what we're focusing on. Can't wait to hear what you have to share today. And to start our conversation, what are your insights on the current ESG and sustainability trends, strategies, and how can digital transformation track progress in sustainability, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think we're at a very interesting time in sustainability where maybe sustainability, because of political happenings, there is maybe less emphasis from a lot of companies. A lot of companies are reluctant to talk about a lot of the sustainability initiatives. But at the same time as that's happening, we're seeing all these new regulations that are going to force companies to disclose. The SEC disclosures that was just launched last week, the California climate bills, and then all of the entire EU Green Deal with CSRD and all of that. So as it feels like the voluntary talking about sustainability is happening less, the mandated disclosures and efforts are increasing. And that's where I think the digital transformation really ties into it, is as we go away from just being kind of nice things we talk about that we're doing to these things we have to do. It is really vital to incorporate these sustainability activities and initiatives into the greater business strategy and to track it and to make that impact happen along with all of the other initiatives as a supporter or as a driving initiative. So
going a little bit deeper, or a lot more deeper, we see a flurry of regulations. Let's say in the last 6 months, we have the CSRD in Europe, we have the California regulations, very recently, as you mentioned, the Security and Exchange Commission. One part of these regulations is tying up sustainability to materiality, to the financial disclosures that the companies, especially the public companies, are obligated to disclose in order to offer transparency to shareholders and to investors. And because you are actually seeing these regulations from a, let's say, a global or a multinational viewpoint, Any comments on the regulations? What do you see? What are there some more coming in the pipeline?
I wonder what is coming. I feel like we've had a flurry of them, and they will continue to come here and there. Singapore just had a national climate reporting as well that doesn't apply to us, but we track because we have a lot of operations there in Singapore. We have a big office there and a lot of sales in Singapore and Southeast Asia. So I think there will be continued regulation, and I think that the regulations will solidify, and it might be a time to digest what this group means, and then we'll see another round that's trying to get more meaningful, actionable disclosures and actions out of companies to kind of see what is it, what behaviors is this driving, and then kind of what do we want to drive, what do the government bodies and the regulators want to drive. So I think that's coming. I think there will there also will be, hopefully there'll be some consolidation around what they're asking. I had an interesting conversation. We're talking about, I was talking with someone from our finance department about materiality. He said, now, is that double materiality or single materiality? So I'm training them, we're getting them up to speed, but it is a funny, which standard of materiality are we bound to on both of these? Or is it like the California where it's just by hitting a certain, size of company, it's automatically immaterial. If it's material, it just applies. So I think that's another area where I'm very interested to see what happens, what comes of this, as to finding ways that we can have a single report meet some of these different requirements, because that's something that as we look at what the reporting burden is, I'm very mindful that I don't want my job to just be reporting. I want to be driving actionable impact. I want, I don't want to spend all my time measuring carbon. I want to actually be reducing it. And that's something that I think is something you have to measure it to know where you're at and to keep score. But, if all we're doing is keeping score, that doesn't, benefit the planet.
Yeah, you definitely, it's like if you manage any sports team, and you always want to improve it. It doesn't matter the score. It's in the past. Actually, it's measuring the past, not the future performance. And of course, if we talk about carbon footprint, if we talk about impact, investment impact, social impact, climateric impact. Of course, just measuring is not going to lead us too far on curbing, for instance, carbon or greenhouse gases, or carbon dioxide of carbon. So, no, excellent point. And I like your point also about, single materiality, double materiality. We can even talk about triple materiality if we want, if we put a social aspect in it. But at the end, it's materiality. And I think from AKFI, at least, point of view, we see actually relying on the current legislation about disclosure, financial disclosures. I don't know if it matters if it's single, double, triple materiality. But you also raise an interesting point, and the point is now the ball is no longer only in the CSO, Chief Sustainability Officer courts, or in the operations part of the organization, but it's also in the financial part. And depending on legislations, I believe at least in Europe, the CFO will have also to sign the same way they sign on other disclosures, financial disclosures. So definitely it's a new ball game. And the other point you raise, and we'll go a little bit deeper into that, but is this point of fragmentation of regulations. And eventually what's happening, when reporting has to happen, the most stringent ones are the ones that are setting the bar for companies. Because if you have operations in California, in Europe, and let's say in other states of US, you'll have to report on, in US, you'll have to report on scope 1 and 2. California, you'll have to report also on scope 3, and the same in Europe. And in Europe, you'll have also the report on uh, child labor, forced labor, social aspects, if you want, as well. So at the end, you'll have to create a database that contains all this data, and then let the AI tools or the analytic tools to pick up whatever you need to do for a specific report. So that's how we see it from AKFI viewpoint. And we're actually struggling to bring forward the issue of the supply chain, because the reports now, at least in the CSRD in Europe, they have to include the supply chain. But changing a little bit the direction of the discussion, and linking to financial reporting. Financial reporting, it's about profit and loss at the end, profitability of the companies. How do you see sustainability moving from what we call it a cost center, reporting is costly, collecting data is costly, to a profit center when it becomes part of a profitable strategy of the company? And how do you see it from your viewpoint?
Yeah, so I think one of the important things that companies can do to support sustainability as a profit center, as a driver, is finding ways that connect your sustainability activities to customer benefits. It's looking at how are we going to reduce our carbon footprint? Can we do it in a way that benefits our customer, or is connects with a cause that they care about? So oftentimes it's looking at what are our unique capabilities, what supply chains are we working in, how can we inset social improvement alongside that, maybe like a carbon reduction program. If we're going to buy offsets, how can we offset them in a way that will benefit a producing community, that we can then tell that story, not to just congratulate ourselves, but to actually connect the customer to that benefit, so that they buy more of it. With as a brand, that's something that we're interested in. And how can we get them to choose that over something else, and to choose a product that is supporting a social or environmental benefit. So I think that's really important. It's something that we have some areas, that projects that we're working on. There's this fruit that's grown in Vietnam that goes into one of our products, and it's how can we support that growing community? Can we help them understand the traditional uses of this fruit, and then that it would be for the same reasons that our consumers are using it, and so that they can see that same benefit. And then as we talk about that and tell that story, it supports the use case for our customers. So how can we tie those together? And it does take more it takes more effort, in that we have to embed it into our actions, but the payoff is significantly better in my mind. And it really it makes it something that we, quite frankly, we don't want to stop doing. Budgets get tight, we say, well, can we cut this? Say, no, this is something that is an integral part of this product and its story. This is something that is part of who it is, or of what it is. So that's something that I think is really important, and something that as we find ways we can do that, it really it multiplies the effort, or the results of the efforts that we put in.
That's very interesting, and actually, I'll move forward with a question about technology, because you already linked profitability with branding. Of course, branding is linked to the position in the mind of the customer. It's linked with the brand is in the mind of the customer, and of course, bringing positive, impactful initiatives will reflect in the brand. And I'll bring the question of technology. And before moving forward, actually, Isabella is a futurist, so I think she will help us with more questions about technology. But she authored last year a book called The Digital Mind of Tomorrow. And my joke is actually that book. It's about the digital mind of today because AI emerged soon after she released the book. So linking technology in this branding, financial view, economic view, and marketing view. How do you see the role of the technology?
The technology is what's going to support it and enable that to happen. The amount of information that we try to gather on in some of these, we're doing you looking for these opportunities. For example, if I could have a list of suppliers and have AI scrape that and tell me which of these stories are most likely to connect or what can I do, it would enable me to. It would free up my time. I mean, that's really the way I look at it. And it's so really the key for me is to say what do I want to see and how do I query a data set? How do I query, the whole of all published knowledge to get, this end result that I want. So really the technology, that's where we're at today. Soon, there will be a day probably in my lifetime where I won't even have to know how to ask the smart questions. But I think right now, the key in using the technology that's available now and that'll be coming out in the next, improving over the next few years is finding really what do we want to know, and then asking those questions of really it's having several great research assistants. I don't have the privilege of having a huge team. What this is I can now put the technology to work on a project, on solving questions for me, but I'm still needing to come up. What do I want to see? What do I need? What do I want to learn? And then asking that, and that's where I've been able to use it in a few ways, and I've seen some vendors offering solutions that will do that even better, and I'm excited I'm really excited about that.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. And actually, the supply chain is now involved, at least in parts of reporting. In Europe, in California, when you have to report on scope 3 emissions, you have to involve the supply chain because that's where the emissions are coming. We observed actually in AKFI that the contracts and the way the information is flowing between the customer, if you want, and the supplier, it's mostly one way today. It's a contractual obligation, goes through the legal, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And now we're asking the suppliers to come up with data, come up with investment actually in digital transformation. Not all of them are following the same, to align also with the objectives of the customer. So let's say if customer A wants to reduce carbon footprint by 20% and customer B wants net zero in 3 years, how do you align these two requirements if you are a supplier for both? So we see the role of digital transformation being, as you said, getting the information, but also we see the role of digital transformation transforming the relationship between the supplier and the customer. So I don't know if you observed that already, but it's probably coming up soon.
It's coming, and as in our organization, we talk about digital transformation. A big part of it is in our supply chain, knowing where things are and where they come from and who we can get them from. And in our organization, and I'm sure in all of yours, we talk about this data lake that we create to be able to draw this information from. And what I see AI really doing is creating not just this internal data like we have, but all information becomes part of that. And it's not about creating APIs into other people's data. Those APIs are created automatically, by the system, by the software, by the I don't even know what you call it. But that data lake, just the ability to draw on that information just becomes immense, and the cost or the time or the effort that goes into drawing that information out, that just gets reduced significantly. And that's really exciting for me, because I go and ask our data team for a report, and they say, we don't have time. We can put it on our calendar, and maybe you can get it next quarter. And I say, well, that's great. I would kind of need it before then, but I see a day where, very soon, that I can query that. And, part of it, the digital transformation, is my own digital transformation of developing the skills to be able to, find out how can I do that without going to our data team. That's the other piece I'm excited about is, when I look at, even from, there has been a great digital transition in my life, from when I was a kid. I turned 42 next week, so I'm not old, not young. Seeing the internet happen from when I was in school to while I was in college, it really exploded. And we all had to become better at using the technology. And I think AI is going to get us all to a point where we're all going to be able to query the data lake, per se, at an expert level, with just kind of with just kind of that novice level of skills. We'll be able to do it at an expert level, which is, I'm able to word process at an expert level using the tools that, when I was a kid, I had to go to typing class and learn how to format letters, and spent, months and months learning how to do things that my kids just know how to do, and it at an expert level. So I see that happening, but in the next 5 years, not over the next 10 years or 20 years, but in the next couple of years. And I think my role is, what I want to be able to do is be able to operate that and succeed at that. And I think that's important, to all of our success, is learning how to use these tools.
And I think